It was 2 a.m., the 25th of October, a night of the full moon. 5 entities in red robes were hidden within an airy room of a 2-story building. They feasted on the bodies of 2 innocent young ladies who had been victims of Njànsí's powers. "He that feasts on flesh and blood shall arise with power from the table of the Lord." The rest echoed. They didn't eat the hearts of their victims. Rather, they burned them in a small fire burning in a bowl at the center of the room. The room was putrid with the smell of bodies, coupled with the dense fumes from the burning incense. The 4 walls were painted red and black alternatively, and occultic articles littered the entire room. The girls' bodies were laid flat on their backs, with heads pointing in the opposite directions. Njànsí feasted on Nkechi's body alone, while the warlocks feasted on Adaku. When the feast was over, the other men took the remains in a sack and prepared to leave. They left Nkechi's skull with Njànsí. "This is a sign of your pledge of loyalty to Cecile. You will serve no other god," said Sri Veruca as he handed the skull to Njànsí. "I will serve no other god," Njànsí promised and bowed, receiving the totem with both hands. "You will ascend to the nether realm only in my name. I am your point of contact with Lord Cecile," said Sri Veruca as they all disappeared. "I will serve Cecile," Njànsí reminded himself as he sat on the snake-skin carpet. Njànsí set out the following morning to begin recruiting his disciples. His criteria were men and women who were hungry for power, wealth, and pleasure. He walked along the streets of Okoko Maiko like every other person, but he was empowered by wicked spirits of the netherrealm. He came to popular Cassidy bus stop. A lengthy city bus pulled up and he entered. The atmosphere was uncomfortable. A strange aura seemed to be oozing out of a young man who was preaching Jesus Christ in the bus. It was so powerful that it weakened Njànsí. He quickly made an incantation and projected elemental spirits against the fiery preacher, but the young man was not affected in the least. Njànsí gave up on the preacher and alighted at the next bus stop. He was then a little relieved and boarded another bus. "Hey, why you match me now?" snapped a fat middle-aged woman, hitting Njànsí's shin with her thick palm. Njànsí glared at her for a moment. He then touched her kneecap. "Sorry, madam," he said, smiling. From then on, the woman began to experience rheumatic pains. Njànsí moved on and took a seat beside a young man who seemed to be a worker. "You seem to be going to work," Njànsí asked him. The man hesitated. "Not exactly. I am going for an interview." "Really? Where?" "My friend, why are you questioning me?" Njànsí laughed. "Because I want to help you. Take a look." Njànsí showed the young man his left palm. In Njànsí's palm, the man saw himself sitting in an office in front of a bowed man wearing glasses. He heard the man say, "We have no vacancy for anyone with your qualifications." "What?" the man exclaimed. "It's a lie. It's a lie. Who are you?" He sprang up, seriously agitated. A little stir ensued in the bus. People began asking what the problem was. "My friend," Njànsí said softly, "sit down." "Conductor, stop me here, stop me here," the man yelled. "We never reach your bus stop now," replied the conductor. "I said calm down," Njànsí beckoned on him. "I can help you." The man sat down briefly. "What do you want from me?" "I just want to help you." The man sprang up again. "Help! Oh, this man is a wizard." Njànsí disappeared. Back in his temple sanctum, he strengthened himself spiritually, had something to eat, and then went out again. The Kalus had committed their lives to Jesus Christ after their experience with Njànsí. They were now committed to spiritual activities. Left with only one child, they did their best to teach her God's word. Ngozi was eager to learn. Once in a while, she asked when Nkechi would come back from school. and where her new elder brother was. Those questions always brought tears to her mother's eyes. Maureen often came over to the house. She understood that her sister had been through a lot, and she made herself available to her to help her recuperate. On a certain Sunday afternoon, Maureen, her husband George, and their children all came over to the Kalu's home to have lunch. The women went into the kitchen and made preparations while the men watched television. Chooks, Junior, and Ngozi were doing their own thing upstairs. When the women were through, they all reclined at the dining table and began eating a sumptuous meal of fried rice and chicken. "A well-cooked meal," mumbled Ben. Comfort smiled. A short silence ensued. "George." Maureen broke the silence. She gave her husband a stare that prompted him to confirm the compliment. "Oh yes, a very good meal." "That is how he is," complained Maureen. "He hardly comments on anything, always so serious." George laughed at his wife's accusation. The kids chatted in whispers, mainly about whose chicken was biggest and whose bone was longest. Chukwudi and Junior were such good company for Ngozi. "There is something I want to suggest to us," Maureen said. Everyone looked at her, paying attention. "I would like us to start having corporate prayers for Njànsí." Maureen spoke with great caution. The idea had been on her mind for a while, but she feared she might open up wounds in her sister's heart. Everyone was silent. George was a little uncomfortable. He cleared his throat softly and adjusted himself on his seat. He had told his wife to let the issue rest for a while, but she felt strongly convinced in her heart about it. "What I mean is, we could come together on Sundays like this and just pray for his salvation for about an hour." After a little silence, Chief Kalu cleared his throat loudly and spoke up. "Well, it is a good idea." He felt for his sister-in-law who was being left out in the cold. "Comfort, what do you think?" he asked. "It is all right," Comfort murmured while staring into her food and apparently playing with it using her spoon. It was obvious that she would have preferred a different discussion. She suddenly stood up and called her maids to clear the table. She then went to the living room, followed by the others, more out of sympathy than satisfaction with the food. After further discussions, the Nwachukwus left. The prayers had been agreed upon. Njànsí's hunt had yielded 3 initiates: an aging banker, a single middle-aged woman, and an 18-year-old girl. The 4 of them were preparing for the astral journey to the nether realm. They sat, hands held in a circle in Njànsí's sanctum. Njànsí led in a series of incantations, while the rest repeated after him. "Spirits of the nether realm, prepare to fly. Clouds of the gloomy skies, keep closed your eyes. Courts of the Lord of Sasiri, open up your gates. In the name of Sri Veruca, we come to Sasiri." At that, their bodies suddenly became stiff as though dead, but they were breathing. The 4 of them spun for hours in a tunnel, lit only by the eyes of myriads of demons, until they appeared in Lord Sasiri's court. The initiates could not help but be afraid. Myriad of demons in the gallery, the eerie humming, the darkness, the strange flames, the evil aura, and of course, Lord Sasiri, all contributed to magnify the fear in them. "Sasiri's virgin," thundered Sasiri. "My lord," Njànsí answered, bowing down. His company bowed down too, on impulse. Veruca stepped forward. He had been hidden by the darkness beyond Sasiri's throne. "Sri Veruca," greeted Njànsí. "You are welcome, my son," replied Veruca. "Are these your children?" "Yes, my lord. They seek the power of Tartarus." "They are welcome." The audience of the spirits joined him. Every outburst sent a series of shivers down the spines of Njànsí's initiates. Veruca finally stopped laughing. I see that you are afraid," commented Veruca. The 3 were still on their hands and knees. Well, after today, you shall never be afraid of anything in your life." Veruca stretched out his left hand. He had a grim look on his face. He received a staff with which he drew 3 pentagrams on the smooth ebony floor while chanting incantations. Njànsí hypnotized his disciples, stripped them naked with the help of other witches, and laid them in a pentagram each, with his head and limbs coinciding with the 5 points of the star in the pentagram. Then the ceremony began. Mrs. Bello had just finished cooking when Aminatu, her 18-year-old daughter, walked into the kitchen. "Where have you been?" "I went to a friend's place," Aminatu replied. "A friend's place? A friend's place, eh? Aminatu!" The young girl walked over to the dish rack and picked up a dish, completely ignoring her mother. "Daddy said I should bring his food." "What?" exclaimed Mrs. Bello. "I am talking to you and you are ignoring me." "Aminatu!" "I am not ignoring you. I'm just telling you why I came to the kitchen in the first place." Aminatu's tone betrayed her arrogance and she avoided her mother's face. "Oya, give me that plate," demanded the plump woman. "I said Daddy asked for his food." Amina raised her voice. At that, her mother slapped her very hard and dragged the plate away. She began scooping some rice into the plate. Aminatu murmured an incantation. "You foul, wicked, unwise mortal, you dare strike Cecilia's daughter. By all the dark and mighty spirits of Tartarus, I yield you to Lord Chitanam." Mrs. Bello turned to her daughter, having slightly heard the last sentence because Amina's voice rose gradually. "What did you say?" she asked, still fuming. As soon as their eyes met, Mrs. Bello screamed and fell, dropping the plate and spilling the rice on the floor. Her husband and other children rushed into the kitchen. "What happened?" Mr. Bello asked frantically, bending over and shaking his wife vigorously. He looked up, down, and up again at his first daughter. "What happened?" he asked again. "Amina, what happened to Mommy?" asked her younger brother, sobbing. "I don't know. She just fell down." "Musa, call Dr. Suleiman," said Mr. Bello while he employed various methods in an attempt to revive his wife. "Yes, Daddy." "Quickly!" That same night, Aminatu appeared in Njànsí's sanctum. Njànsí had his arms behind him and was facing Nkechi's skull, which hung on the north wall. "My lord, I have sacrificed my mother to Lord Chitanam," Amina reported. "Is that so?" asked Njànsí, apparently dissatisfied. "Was it a worthy sacrifice? Is she the one you love most?" "Yes, my lord. But Lord Cecily does not accept her." Njànsí turned around. "She is not the one you love most. It is your father you love most, and you must surrender him. No one must stand between you and the Lord." Aminatu fell down on her knees, crying, "My lord, please, I beg you, beg Lord Cecily to accept my mother. I cannot kill my father. Please, my lord." "You can kill anyone. You have Cecily's heart of stone. Go," commanded Njànsí. A specialist had concluded that Mrs. Bello died of a heart attack due to sudden shock. A few weeks later, while Mr. Bello was driving his son to school and himself going to work, they ran into an electric pole on the highway. The car was set ablaze and both of them died. Aminatu had been at the house when they left, but she was never seen at the house by her family members after the incident. You can have anything you want. You can do anything. It all depends on the degree to which you yield to Lord Cecily, your constant communication with him in Sri Veruca's name, and the degree to which you perpetuate wickedness. Wickedness is Cecili's heartbeat. He thrives on man's blood. The more blood there is, the more power there is. Njànsí was given a lecture to his increasing disciples. He now had more than 70 disciples from all walks of life, though not all of them had undergone proper initiation rites in Netherrealm. He was making progress, and Cecily was pleased with him, but he had begun to have problems. Problems with the psychic criminals.